October 23rd, 7 p.m. Town Hall. Please know that this meeting is being recorded and broadcasted at WestfordCAT. We'll start the meeting as we always do with open forum. Before that, just like to say that citizens are certainly always welcome to come up and speak. We won't be discussing anything in the town meeting that happened with the folks, but you're certainly willing to give us your comments. If you have any issues about the logistics of town meeting, please go to the select board meeting tomorrow night at the Moneo School, Jeff, 7 o'clock, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So I think that's where it would be appropriate to discuss, the logistics and the issues at town meeting. So having said that, I'll first go to the board. Anybody have anything for open forum?
No.
All right, staff?
This Thursday on the 26th, you can see up on the screen, there's going to be a public workshop for our MBTA communities bylaw. This is where we're really hoping to get people's feedback on what we want our potential multifamily housing to look like in town. So hoping it's going to be more fun than some other public meetings you may have been involved in. This will be this Thursday at 6:30 at the Stony Brook School. See you there.
Anybody from the public have anything for open forum? Great. I will go to the board. Dylan, you want to, anybody? Oh, we have already gone to the board.
Wait, I think, yeah, we already went to the board.
Yep. Oh,
I think we have somebody stepping up for open forum.
Hi, my name is Linda Kaler, and I live on Buckingham Drive. And I do want to talk about the zoning bylaw that we all know did not pass. I really understand how much work, months and months of work and discussion and compromise went into that zoning bylaw recommendation. And I'm also very, very concerned that our chief of police really has, a strong concern about safety issues. So I would like to strongly urge the board here, the planning board, to rethink the issue and see if we can't come up with something that would be reasonable and can get passed at a, at a
Town meeting.
Yeah, town meeting. That's the word. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so we are going to adjust the agenda a little bit. A new one was sent out this morning. We're going to go right to our general business item C, a follow-up discussion regarding special town meeting. Again, this is a board discussion.
Actually wanted to say something, and if this, isn't appropriate for this meeting, feel free to interrupt me and let me know. Jennifer Valandri, Almeria Circle. I did want to address the issue of double voting that was...
Again, I think, I don't interrupt, but that's something that's going to be discussed at select board tomorrow night.
Okay, all right, no problem.
It really has nothing to do with us. And
Okay, no problem.
all right, anybody else? Okay, so now to follow-up discussion regarding special town meeting, general business item C. Again, there is nothing open for the public for anything to do with the zoning bylaw amendment. If this board does decide to bring something forward for a zoning bylaw amendment for spring town meeting, we will start a new public hearing process where we certainly will take input from the public as we did before, but at this point that isn't open and isn't on the table, so this will be a discussion between the board members. So having said that, Dylan, do you want to start?
Mike, I did have a prepared statement, but I think what I would prefer to do is that we go into a general discussion, and I'll try to highlight the key points from sort of my feelings on the matter of the process that we went through to arrive at the bylaw amendment article, which did fail to pass at special town meeting. I'll just sort of work my feedback into the discussion, if that's okay.
That's fine.
Great.
That's fine. So I think as it stands now, and again, we as a board are public and we haven't discussed this between us, my personal feeling is I would like to address the chief's concerns. I think for those who were unaware of the process and became extremely upset when the chief tried to reconsider the vote, his purpose was to amend it for the purpose of having the separation between the licenses. I think this is his most important concern, and again, the ability to do the security checks during the permitting process. I personally would be amenable to starting the process to look at that for spring town meeting I guess it's up to the board to what people think. I'll start, Bob. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think the first thing, unfortunately, we didn't have the benefit of having any advance notice that this had happened on Monday. But for those who may or may not be aware, the Boston Globe published another article on the issue and what ATF is doing over with the Littleton gun dealers, and talked about the loophole that they're using. If you haven't seen it, I'll forward it out through Jeff or Joe tomorrow. But it really brought to light just what the chief's concern is and what that 500-foot separation was trying to address in terms of how these dealers are using what they call the frame game in order to sell guns in piece parts and basically bypass many of the state and federal regulations. I wish we had had this a week or two sooner, because it would have been very valuable to kind of use this as part of that discussion process last week. But yes, I agree with what you just said, Mike. I think for all the reasons you said, combined with what we're learning from this article, the article also does address the individual who came before us back in February and March. And I guess there is an investigation, and there are potential repercussions for that individual. So I kind of would like to understand more about that with the chief, but that's probably going to affect the permit.
He's probably not going to be taking residence.
Probably not going to be coming into Westford. But I think we do have to address just the issue that was being discussed in this article about the piece parts and what they call the frame game. So.
And again, I think the chief's proposal, the 500-foot separation, would take care of that issue.
Yes.
As well as the security operations plan to be reviewed prior to the issuance of special permit.
Yeah.
Those were the two dynamics that really would have prevented against that.
Right.
And I kind of feel like we failed the chief. He came to us and
I
asked
agree.
us. You know.
I think collectively the town failed to hear the chief of police and provide common sense, efficient, elegant modifications to the bylaw that would have protected the town.
I agree. Joni, thoughts?
My thoughts are, I totally agree with you. I agree with what Bob said. I wish we had, more of the chief's proposal ahead of time. But I think what is most important is that our police can feel comfortable and have the protection that they feel they need to be able to enforce things in this town. So I totally agree we should try to put forth something that is a pared-down version consistent with what will meet his needs.
So one concern I have, and I think that Jeff was going to look into it, is that should we go to town meeting with something as we're discussing, and then it become amended, and they start adding more things into it, then become this monstrosity that was before, and then become defeated. Now, Jeff, it can't be brought unless we bring it to town meeting for 2 years. Correct?
So the same bylaw amendment cannot come back sooner than 2 years unless the second time around the planning board gives a favorable recommendation. Okay. Now, what is a different question is if something different is proposed, then there's a question of, is it too similar that it's subject to the 2-year rule, or is it different enough that it's not subject to the 2-year cooling off period? And I can't give you an answer for that. I'm sure council could give an opinion based on whatever relevant case law there is, but I don't know where that line is. All I know is that the exact same one cannot come back sooner than 2 years unless you folks give favorable recommendation. And after that, I don't know where that line is.
Well, I actually, no, I'm sorry.
I wanted to address one other thing Mike just said to alleviate your concerns. In terms of coming to town meeting floor and having amendments add things in, that generally cannot occur if it is a drastic increase in the scope of the article as advertised in the warrant. I'd have to rely upon the moderator to do that, but as a student of town meeting, was it Town Meeting Time, which is the official guidebook for town meeting for us, for the rules of order, you can reduce in scope what you're voting on through amendments, but you cannot significantly increase in scope.
That's interesting.
So, there would be limits in terms of what can occur, with amendments on the floor of town meeting.
I mean, I personally don't favor recommending that same article.
No.
And in fact, in my comments, I actually comment that I would actually like to commend Chairman Bonifant for his courage with his nay vote, because upon reflection, I probably also should have voted nay. But given the amount of effort that had gone into it, I felt like it deserved to be heard by town meeting and voted on. But I did not feel good about the ultimate outcome that resulted from the process that bylaw amendment went through and the input from other town boards. I'll be very clear, I refuse to sit in another meeting with the Board of Health under the auspices that somehow the proposal or the idea that a gun shop could open in Westford is somehow a mental health crisis for the entire town of Westford. I just refuse to invest my time in lunacy of that level. Secondarily, I don't think things like arbitrary and ambiguous setbacks need to be part of a bylaw amendment. That doesn't necessarily mean schools. That's one that I feel like I can get behind. But the children commonly congregate. I had issues with it from the get-go, and I would not support that being part of a future bylaw amendment of this board. I similarly don't agree with 2 special permit license pools. That feels authoritarian and heavy-handed. I also think that this board was treated with disrespect and disregard in our guidance and our counsel to go with a lighter touch. And I think, Mike, you and I personally took a lot of heat for our comments that the market in Westford, clearly under a normal set of operating circumstances and retail circumstances, clearly supports 0 active firearms businesses in town. And what we're trying to do here is prevent an abnormal selling environment in the town of Westford. So I think that summarizes what I would be prepared to consider endorsing if we were to take this back up for Springtown meeting.
Yeah, I think, this whole thing came about because we had an applicant come into town, and all we could do was subject to site plan review. And we all thought, well, geez, we should probably put something in place, given what happened in our neighboring town. So we took strides to do that, we invited the chief in, and then it became much broader in scope. So I think I would be in favor of putting something together with the chief to make sure that his interests are covered, and I think that would protect the whole town's interests.
I agree. Jeffrey, you need any more direction from us?
No, sir. It sounds like through consensus, you would want to see like a different pared down version that explicitly addresses the chief's concerns, and we can have options for what about the buffer to schools.
So I was told that FLL federal requirement is 1,000 feet from schools to begin with. So I don't think they could be within 1,000 feet according to their federal license. So I'm going to look into that further as well.
Okay.
So I mean, I think that's,
That is certainly a point for clarification.
yeah.
Again, and I don't speak for the entire board, but my personal opinion is light touch, efficient, elegant, simple. That's what I'm expecting to see.
Yeah, I agree. All right, anybody have anything else?
Yeah, I agree with what Dylan just said with one caveat, and that was, I think, one of the lessons I learned from and I need to go back and look at our definitions, but from reading the Boston Globe article, and I just did that today before today's meeting, one of the issues that has led to this loophole has to do at the state level with how they define firearms. And so, by taking the things into pieces, they avoid ever falling under that bylaw, because the state law treats it as a component that must be able to fire around. And if you've broken it into the 2 halves, by themselves, neither one can. Although they, in actuality, support the ability to do it when brought together. So I'd like to make sure that I take the lessons learned from that article and that discussion of the state definitions and make sure our definitions are broad enough so that we recognize piece parts for being piece parts. So that's the one thing I want to make sure.
Good
And I
point.
have not had time to go back and examine our definitions and make sure that they don't fall under that
Yeah.
same problem.
And I would want to, reaffirm with town council, although in the KP Law opinion letter, which I think got a lot less conversation and airtime than it should have in the original process, my understanding is that what the site plan approval body would maintain a high degree of liberty to take decisions on whether or not the needs of a firearms business, if the needs of the community are being met by existing firearms businesses. So I want to reaffirm that as we go through the process to ensure that when we inevitably get to account and conversation, we are very informed and very clear to the public if the site plan approval body can regulate in its discretion whether or not needs are met, and that could result in a far lower number of firearms businesses and perhaps eliminate the need to actually set hard caps at all if people would just have faith and trust in their elected public officials.
Excuse me? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, moving along, for our first public hearing, PB 2318, 487 Groton Road. Site plan review. Thank you, gentlemen, for letting us take this first. Can I get a motion to waive the public notice?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 I'm gonna talk on the way out again.
Yeah, the room is clearing. Let's maybe give a moment.
I guess this is not the interesting one.
We're riveted, if it makes any sense.
So are you putting a drive-through in your gun shop, Mr. Guthrie?
No, sir.
All right, gentlemen.
I'm currently afraid of guns, but, Mr. Waterman.
Are we ready?
Ready?
Yes.
Good evening, Matt Waterman with Land Tech Consultants. Here with me tonight, David Guthrie with 487 Groton Road LLC. We're here for site plan review and special permits for 487 Groton Road on the overhead shown in color with the areas surrounding it with the aerial overlay. We're here for site plan 9.4.1 of the bylaw for the expansion of the use with a detached garage. It's in the, sorry, I skipped around and I lost my point, but it'll be a 1,248 square foot storage building, which is roughly 24 by 52. It's shown in the lower right corner of this plan in the tan color. We're also here for two special permits, sections 8.1.7 for rendering more than 15% of the lot impervious, which is your Water Resource Protection Overlay District, WARPOD. We're also here for a parking variance, special permit, sections 5.1.4 to Green Bank for parking spaces with the addition of the storage building. The property is located on the corner of Carl Thompson Road and Route 40 Groton Road. Across, just off the screen to the north, is Russell's Way, the Greystone subdivision. The parcel is just under 1 acre, 0.98 acres, has 200 feet of frontage on Groton Road and approximately 165 feet on Carl Thompson Way, making it a corner lot where it has two fronts and two sides. It's located in a zone IA, Industrial A, and its current use, it's an existing office building, industrial offices, and there's a 10,300 roughly square foot building, which is the larger tan orange colored building in the middle of the lot. Currently it has parking to support 32 parking spaces, 18 being in the front, right along Route 40, which I'm sure most of you have seen or are familiar with if you've ever driven down Route 40. And then there's 14 additional spaces in the back. The access for both parking spaces come in off of Carl Thompson Road, and there's no direct access onto Route 40. Built in 1984, there are around surrounding properties are primarily commercial industrial uses. To the right is the former Philbrick Motorsports, now I think it's Sweepman. And then there's the Lowell 5 Bank further to the right where the intersection on Route 40 is, and then to the south there's additional commercial building on Carl Thompson Way. And then just off-site to the, we don't directly abut, but it's nearby is the residences on Betty Lane. You can see the pool in the back of the closest house. And there is a dimension there, 180 feet. And then there's also, across the street, there's more commercial uses. There's auto body shop and variety of industrial businesses on the street, and then an open space that's associated with Greystone Estates. But the majority of the uses around the site are commercial industrial. There is no wetlands within 100 feet of the property. The proposed use is set as a garage storage building. Dave conducts his building, his office out of this building, and currently there's no storage. There's a storage trailer that they use, or they are required to store their equipment off-site at one of their job sites, which constantly changes, and so there is a need and a goal to have on-site storage for his use. It would not be used by anyone else in the building. It would just be Dave and any of the companies that he's working with or for. And so that the building would just be associated with that. Obviously, we could store things outside. We feel that this is a much better use by providing this the ability to provide the storage inside in a safe and secure manner and out of sight. And obviously, it's behind the building and visibility is at a minimum. We did go to the Board of Appeals. We got a setback variance to the property line, reducing it to I think 7.6 and 4.6 feet to the two property lines to the south and to the southeast and southwest. Those Board of Appeals granted that variance. They did understand that the need for the use and the goal and for putting or granting the variance was to kind of keep the efficiency of that back parking lot. We restriped the parking lot, designate parking and alleyways for access to the building. And where we were reducing it to adjacent industrial businesses, that variance was granted.
You need a room for the septic, too.
And there is a septic in the back, thank you. And if you see, there's two shaded diagonal boxes that are in the middle of the parking lot. There's an existing septic there. With this project, we do update the septic to, we repair it to a new standards. And so we did have to leave room for the septic system. Parking, we are reconfiguring the parking. In the front, we allocate handicap parking spaces up in front for van accessible, 2 handicap spaces. We stripe the parking lots, both front and rear. And then we maintain our access points on Carlisle Road, so we don't change any of the entrances. We keep our access on Carlisle Road. And we keep the number of parking spaces that there is today. There's 32 today, and when we're done, there'll be 32 spaces. We do ask for the special permit to reduce the 4 additional parking spaces that are required. Obviously, we're increasing the square footage with the storage building, but where it is strictly storage, we don't anticipate any additional need for parking. There's no problems with parking out there. A lot of the businesses have varied time of use. A couple of the companies, Dave's in particular, a lot of their work is off-site or at different job sites, and so there is not a parking problem on this facility and so we're asking for a special permit to grant the construction of 4 parking spaces. Warpod, increasing the amount of impervious. It's currently more than 15%. We're increasing that by 400 square feet. We tried to put the existing storage building on the paved parking to the extent practical, but there is a small strip that does expand the amount of impervious area. We don't trip any stormwater permits. We don't disturb more than an acre, but we do have stormwater best management practice, so we provide infiltration system for the 100-year storm for the entire storage building. You can see that shown up where the building has a corner knocked off of it, and that's our proposed roof drain system. Traffic, we don't expect any increase in traffic. Based on the square footages, it does The ITE does have an increase in 2 vehicles per day, but again, where we're not increasing any office space or any uses, we don't anticipate a change in the traffic. We quickly touched on the distance to the abutters. The nearest residential butter is 180 feet, or just under 200 feet to the southeast. There's a significant woodland that separates us as well. And I think one thing, you can see the building to the southwest. That's, I don't know what the current use is, but that's the former El Paco building. And then you can see the building to the right, which is Sweetman. And then this building kind of fits in the middle, and I think if anything, this building helps to screen. Access to this building is from the parking lot. Very limited use around the back of the building. There is a 5-foot strip, 4-foot strip, for maintenance purposes, but it's not expected that any activity is going to be going on the side of this building or in the rear of this building. Lighting, we didn't have any proposed lighting. Currently, the building has security lighting around it, and we're not changing anything and don't expect the need for any formal lighting. Be happy to answer any questions. Dave is here if you have any questions on time of use or the use in general.
All right, well, first we'll go to the staff. Joe?
The only thing I would add, Mr. Chair, is that I did have a conversation with engineering today. They have started to review this project. They don't see any red flags or anything. So depending on how the board feels, if you were comfortable with the applicant moving forward, subject to meeting any technical review conditions that they have, they were happy to have that as a condition.
Great, awesome. All right, Bob?
Okay, first thing I wanted to make a statement on was I think there should be some kind of pavement marking in front of the doors indicating a no parking area. I'm kind of concerned about fire access in the event there was a fire. I think need to clearly label that as you would any door on the
The
building.
garage doors for the storage building.
The garage door and the personal access door that was there. And possibly down the whole front of it. I think, just to provide access to that in the event there's a fire. You want the fire department to be able to get in there quickly. You answered some of my questions already. I think I heard you say that this is strictly accessed by Dave and his company, because that was my first question. It wasn't clear to me which tenant would be potentially using this. Direction to staff is I want to make sure in our orders and conditions, we kind of specify what materials can or cannot be stored in this. I just don't want to see us get 5 years down the road and find out that, for instance, there's been a lot of paint thinner or something.
Well, I think that
stored in
there's
there.
more than, what did Ray say, 50 gallons of hazardous material they have to, so I think that's.
Yeah, but I just want to make sure that it's clear that that's in our approval.
All right.
And that's good, so I'm happy with that. I did have one question about the placement of this and just wondered if there was any consideration given to sliding this up to the north and the east so that the site there did better screening of this from the homes, and whether that wasn't possible, and having parking down in this corner, because basically this has maximized or minimized the distance between this and the residences. I was just wondering if there's any ability to shift that up.
Yeah, we jockeyed that around a lot when we were not only with the zoning board of appeals, but we had configurations where we had it attached to the building at one point. The septic system, obviously, and then the parking, and trying to keep and maintain that 14 parking spaces in the rear, and actually 15 because we lose one up front. And it was hard, and we did incorporate some of engineering's comments already, where you'll see a walkway along the back of the building. There's a 5-foot strip for the parking so that pedestrians can walk up against the building and access. And then you'll see there's turning movements. We've eliminated some parking in the upper right, closest to that where Joe is swirling his mouse. And that's to give, access for those cars to back out. So the traffic patterns really dictated a lot on where that building was and the parking spaces, and we had a really hard time, putting the puzzle together, so to speak, to get that to work.
I think we lost those 3 in the middle of the building in the back. When we did have it up closer, just 'cause it's more convenient if you're coming in and out of, my office is down that end, but we flipped the 4 that are adjacent to the proposed storage back down low, but then we lost the 3 that were up high in the middle of the building.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you lose more going across the back of the building.
My next question had to do with lighting, and I think you said there is no exterior lighting at all on this?
I don't think we need it. We don't work at night.
You're gonna have interior lighting, I would assume?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's the wall packs in the building that light the parking lot very well, so we
Okay.
didn't feel the need for additional lighting.
Okay.
There may be code that, excuse me, there may be code that requires the pedestrian door have a light on it, I think, that's building code, but, I don't believe it necessarily over the garage doors, and we don't feel the need for that.
Ventilation, any kind of ventilation system on this structure?
No.
So, no alarm, I'm looking for anything that makes noise, is I guess where I'm at.
I didn't think of the alarm. We don't keep a lot of things that are terribly valuable to anybody but us, you know.
Okay.
We've really never had a problem over there.
Okay.
You know, it's a pretty quiet area. No ventilation, no, it's cold storage. I didn't think about an alarm, to be honest with you, but.
Okay. And then the last question was just the grading, is this gonna be slightly elevated to have stuff drain away from it? And that's, wasn't clear to me how, if you were altering the.
No, and we try to keep the general flow of what is going on today. The parking lot does get resurfaced with the replacement of the septic, obviously for the construction of the storage building, but we kept it as it is today with the grades. Obviously, there will be a little for the keep water out of the garage building, but we're not changing the parking lot grades at all. We're keeping them as is.
Okay.
All right, great, Joni?
My only concern or question is, obviously, material storage, any equipment, are you, expecting to put, front-end loaders or anything in there?
No, we don't, you know, 15 years ago, we had that kind of stuff, backhoes and bobcats stuff. We don't have any of that stuff anymore. We really are more construction management now. And where I'm getting a little longer in the tooth, I don't see myself going back to that equipment, nor will that be big enough to store that stuff. No, we won't have it big enough. You know.
Okay. So my concern was, early morning noise for the occupants, the residents in that
Comfortable if you
area.
restrict that, or working hours, comfortable with that stuff too. Our intent is not to have that stuff, and certainly not to be out there, prior to 7 o'clock.
Perfect.
Dylan?
So the plan is to remove the existing septic system and put in a new one, as I understand it.
Fortunately, yes.
So, based on the layout and the overlay of the new to the old, you're gonna remove the old one fully, I would assume. You're not gonna leave it in place and abandon it in place, right?
Correct. The leach field? Yeah, that'll come out.
And I would imagine a good amount of the parking deck's gonna have to come up to do that work.
So my goal this summer was to do the front parking lot over.
Yeah.
Those guys didn't show. I don't know if the rain hurt everybody so badly this summer. I wanted to do the front this year. I did the landscaping over out front this year. And then do the back parking lot next year, entire parking lot, to answer your question, yes. So it looks like I may end up doing the front and the back again, all over next year.
So are you gonna stay open while the back parking lot comes up to do that?
I'll do it in
septic
phases,
work?
yeah. Nobody really parks out back. Cable TV leaves a van back there.
Yeah.
That's really about it.
Okay, that was my question really, was what was gonna be the parking plan, and was it gonna impact the amount of parking if you have to take the entire back deck up while you do that and you stay
I don't think it
open?
will. Yeah, like I said, nobody really parks out there. There may be one gym employee that parks back there. There's
Yeah.
a personal fitness trainer in there, but they could certainly park out front.
Okay.
We're fortunate, we're only really burdened if cable TV has a big event, open house or something of that magnitude. But that's usually night when everybody else is closed, so we're pretty fortunate in that sense. Dance studio on the end is mainly a drop-off and a pickup.
Okay,
And I think the rest is my construction company, and my business partner has a construction company in there as well, and there are a couple of parking spots.
that was it.
Darren?
Nope. I had a couple of questions on the parking spaces, but you guys addressed them well, thank you. No, I saw engineering's comment about the drainage pipe, and I think as long as engineering's comfortable with it, I'm fine with it.
Great, so I drove through there today, and I can attest that there was one car behind it and 2 guys smoking a cigarette. That was it, nothing going on back there. I think that the parking spaces all the way on the right is kind of overgrown, nobody's parking there anyway.
Down the end.
on the end, where there's a trailer, and then,
Oh, in the back?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, correct.
so there was nothing going on back there. And then I went down Betty Lane, and, yeah, Phil Brooks has got a great view of their pool. And then the other house has the building on Carl Thompson right in their backyard, but this seems to be far enough away. So, I mean, I don't have any concerns with it. I think it's fine. As the board is amenable, we could vote on this subject to engineering's comments. If engineering has any big problems, they can always come back to us. Oh, public comment. Anybody from the audience have anything to say concerning this? Oh, there we go. Good.
Hi there.
Hi. Hello.
Lisa Nakash in Holsburg, your neighbor. And I just have to say, as a neighbor, he's one of the greatest folks to live around the corner from. So no worries there. Absolutely love WestfordCAT and everything else you got going on there. I do have one question. Is there any chance this footprint could be just a smidge smaller so that it didn't have to exceed the 15% issue? And I ask that because the town already knows that we've been experiencing a good deal of water runoff, which when I got here was not the issue. Back in the 90s, there was never an issue with the driveway. And over the years, and I'd have to go back through my notes to see what set it off, but it's just gotten worse and worse. So our front driveway, I'm speaking on behalf of my mother as well, because she's in a butter, so she's given me permission to do that today in writing, and as well as ourselves. So that driveway is owned by my mother and me, and my husband. So water runoff has gotten so bad that it looks like a ice skating rink in the winter. It's really unsafe. And the garage door will come down and get stuck if we don't mitigate that ourselves. So we reached out to Chip in the old days, and he put a little bit of a asphalt lip in front of the driveway. It helps a little, not a lot, you know. My concern just is that more runoff in the area, I don't see how that's going to make things better. Any chance we could mitigate
So,
that?
where's the runoff coming from? Do you think?
The road,
From,
Road.
but you're on Betty Lane, right?
Carl Thompson.
Oh, you're on Carl
I'm on
Thompson.
Betty Lane as well as Carl Thompson.
Okay.
Yeah, they have access, I think, further down past.
And so,
El
you know,
Paso.
Okay, so past the, okay.
I'm just looking to solve this. I'm not looking to make things, you know. So I don't know if, I read through all this, and I appreciate, it looks like it says lots of work has been done to minimize things. But, you know, over the years, I've read that before. And, I mean, I'm thrilled that you're doing business, you're doing great, WestfordCAT's doing great, everybody's doing great, more taxes, all's good. I just want to make sure our water issues don't get worse. So how can we solve that? And so I guess I am saying I'd prefer this special permit go through without exceeding that 15%, because I think we've already got an issue in the area.
So I believe they're at 66% now, and they're looking to 1% more.
Yeah, yeah,
Is the increase.
yeah.
They're gonna have to have a permit for exceeding 15% regardless.
Right, that's the issue that I'm concerned about.
Yeah, and we increase it by the 400, but we're infiltrating for the full 1,250 square feet. And we did try to reduce the parking lot to the extent practical. You'll see it's kind of narrowed up right behind the building, that rear portion of the building that has a kind of a jog where you come into the back parking lot. That kind of opens up quicker, and we're removing pavement in that whole area to reduce pavement, because you can't functionally kind of park there without being in the travel aisle, and so we were hoping to do that. Sorry.
Yeah, and I know this doesn't really have a bearing on your project, but I thought I'd just say it, that your neighbor, new neighbor, Jim Childs, they bought the El Paco building from John Grant, and he's come in and done a phenomenal job. I mean, he's been a great neighbor, checked with all of us about any concerns, and the work he's been doing there has been fantastic. So, you know, I just want to make sure everybody's happy by the end of this and not see the water issues get even worse than they already are, which, as I said, have progressively gotten worse over the years.
Did he add a drainage over there, didn't he, to that new building, to the building?
I don't know exactly. He was pretty good about, well, do you know?
Yeah, I can speak to
Yeah,
that.
please,
Yeah, he
thank
did. If I may, I met with him too. Great guy.
Yeah,
right?
he's-
Going to
he's
be,
a-
I
yeah.
think, great for our neighborhood there. The fundamental problems are out on Carl Thompson. The catch basins are in about 2 feet from the city edge of the roadway, and really no curbing there to allow for the water to get into the catch basin, which is obviously a problem running right down the street. He did down I worked on those two buildings when I was a kid, and to the far end of Jim's building, he improved that whole retention area, that basin down there, increased it, and put a little drainage up in this corner here, just south of my driveway, if you will, that blue circle there.
Yep.
He put some drainage in there because the water's running down the road now and kind of curving into his land. He picked it up there and brought that across a pipe down through the front of his yard to get into that detention pond there, which should help, I think, reduce some of the water on the roadway, if you will. It's supposed to come down and catch that catch basin just past his driveway, but it's, again, these catch basins are non-curbed and 2 feet off of the curb line, so it's, he saw it pouring down past my driveway and into his yard and didn't want to have it anymore, so he's picked up some drainage there and he's piped it down to that basin, which I think he improved substantially, in my opinion. I didn't go down there and walk it, but formalized it. It looked to me to be a little deeper or bigger, and then seeded. Like I said, he's been spending a lot of money on that building. I think it's going to be a vast improvement. Our piece, like Matt said, will increase by 1,200 some odd square feet, but that 1,200, which all but 400 is existing now, will now be captured into that formal draining area adjacent to the building, which we didn't have before. So in essence, we're sort of taking 800 square feet out of the drainage calculation, if you will. Not from a scientific standpoint, but from a runoff standpoint, which should hopefully benefit you.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if there was any room for, negotiating amongst the board and you, and maybe giving up a parking space so that you could still get the size you want, but we don't see as much runoff, or, I'd just be a lot happier if that 15%.
We could certainly live with us parking, that's a fact, but that's up to the board. We just don't use it back there. The asphalt surface back there just doesn't get used. It's your regulation, we're trying to comply with it, but
We didn't want to come in with less than 32 spaces.
we'll land bank a couple of those if you want. That's not gonna hurt us.
Can I ask, if it's a flat roof, do you have roof drains on the building?
I don't know what he has for designs, and I don't know that it's quite flat either. It's probably gonna pitch towards the back.
Is it pitching?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm just
That's
looking
all
at
sand and gravel out there.
Yeah.
So let me ask this, is that gonna affect your ZBA decision? Will you have to go back before them?
Modify the parking?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the relief granted was relative to setback.
Sideline setbacks?
Not
Yeah.
really related to that.
I guess then how would this board feel if we reduce one more parking space?
Two will get
I'm
us
not
to
opposed,
300.
but I guess before I made a decision as to which parking spaces, I'd like to understand a little bit more about the flow of drainage then, so that we worked with the applicant to maximize what would be the best place to revegetate.
I would suggest we task that with engineering.
Yeah, well, I would sort of agree with Bob. I would be amenable to even consider losing a couple of spaces or even 3 spaces. But I do think in that case, I wouldn't, I appreciate we're trying to, not hold up, the applicant and to have an expedited process. But if we're going to eliminate 2 or 3 spaces, I sort of would appreciate town engineering's perspective on what that does to the drainage and the water flow. And so at the risk of dragging you back in, if we,
It's a project for the spring anyway, so I have time. If
yeah,
you wanna wait, I'm
so
fine.
I wouldn't mind sort of having that perspective from town engineering, the plan as we look at it today, and then a reduced footprint of parking and the trade-off to water flow and drainage,
Yeah.
if that's fair.
Jeff?
So one thing to just think about is any time that this board, through special permit, waives the number of required parking spaces, you do have a provision essentially that if deemed necessary, they have to put it back in. So the drainage would have to be designed, in my opinion, to accommodate if all the required parking spaces were, still put back in. It sounds to me like your question is, hey, if we're gonna give a reduction, even if it's temporary, which ones make the most sense? That'll get you the square footage reduction, but I don't know that would actually impact the drainage design, if that makes sense, because they have to plan for if it did come back in, if it seemed necessary.
It sounds like the ones to the west of the new building would be the most beneficial to this condition. Is that fair?
Yes, in theory, absolutely, because it's closer to the abutter's property, but Jeff's point, the drainage is gonna be resolved for the entire back parcel, so I think you can pick them. Logically, that would make the most sense to everybody. I think, in looking at the picture, that makes the most sense as well, but, and I don't think you really eliminate them anywhere else that that seems logical, you know? So I would say, yeah, take those two out and land bank them, and they're there if we need them, but the drainage is designed accordingly, and we move
Right.
on. You know? I do think there's going to be benefit to the abutter, whether this is impacting it prior or not, but the fact that we're picking up the drainage for that building on site should have some benefit, because 800 of the 1,200 is existing now. It's asphalt. We're taking up and putting a roof in it, but we're going to capture it now on site through infiltration, so there should be at least that benefit to the abutter. But we're fine with 2 less parking spots, quite honestly, or 2 fewer, I should say.
Okay.
I'm fine with it.
How much time do you want, Mr. Waterman, to redraw?
Meeting, or two meetings?
Next meeting is the 6th, I believe.
November 6th
Was
or
that
November
December 6th?
20th? Those are the next two.
November 3rd.
If I may.
Well, that's the deadline. Meeting date is the
6th, isn't it?
November 6th, yep.
Yeah, I can make the
Or
6th.
November 20th.
I'm sure you can handle this. You're wiping out 2 parking spots, right?
Yep.
Can you handle the 6th?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 6 is fine with us.
All right, great.
I'll move that we continue PB 2318 487 Groton Road to the November 6th meeting of the Planning Board, 7 PM here, meeting room 201 in Town Hall.
All those in favor say aye.
Need a second.
I think we need a second.
Need a second.
Second.
Do you want us to draft a decision for that meeting as well, or?
Yes, please.
Yes.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Okay, moving along, second public hearing, PB 2318, 400 Littleton Road, public hearing for the application of Jack and Clara Farm Stand for site
Mr.
plan
Chair,
review.
could I just ask, I did ask the applicant before me, could I ask for the discussion item B to be taken out of order, the bond establishment, just before this public hearing?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Any objection? I did ask the applicant before you. Sorry, I would have
Sure.
started before you read
That's
the.
technically, I think that's technically A. Business A.
Yeah, general business A, 472, 476 Groton Road, D. Donato Drive, request to release lots from covenants, lots 2 through 6 and 8, approve Form G and establish a performance bond.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Thank you again for taking me out of order. Attorney Melissa Robbins from Farrell and Robbins. I am also here with Walter Erickson, who's the project developer. Anybody that drives by here can see that great progress has been made out on site. Engineering staff has been working cooperatively. We did think we'd be ready for the last meeting, but we had a little bit of a delay in paving, but paving is completed now. We have a full bond that the board has in their packet that's been approved by engineering staff. We would ask that the board accept this bond amount, which is $363,124.46 as security for release of lots 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. I will ask that there be a condition per the engineering staff that this be subject to engineering staff reviewing one more site plan that they'll get that has the drainage inverts on it that was missed on the site plan which was submitted with the application. So that would be a condition of the board's release. That's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you.
Yep.
Joe?
Nothing to add. Attorney Robbins covered it all.
All right, any questions from the board? Bob?
Nope.
Joni?
No.
Aaron?
Nope.
Dylan?
Nope.
I've got no questions. Can we get some motions? We need a motion to a release, well, why don't we establish the performance bond first? Does it matter, Jeff, how we do this?
I would recommend approve the Form G first.
Okay.
Then you could establish, secondly, the performance bond, and then you could release the covenants subject to establishing the performance bond.
All right. So is there a motion to approve the Form G? My thing is sideways here, in the amount of, where is it?
That's right.
As in the packet. No.
$363,124.46.
That's correct.
Correct. All right, sounds good. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Just one question. Does that include the potential adjustment by engineering?
There wouldn't be a bond number adjustment, it's just a plan adjustment.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Okay, so,
All those in favor say aye.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great. Establish the performance bond. Let's see, it's a tri-party agreement, I believe. Get a motion to approve the tri-party agreement entitled D. Donato Drive, signed by the, did I say it wrong?
No. I just was laughing because it was sideways still in your scan.
Let's see, held with a third-party signatory of Lowell 5 Bank in the amount of, where's the amount again? $363,124.46.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and I say aye. All right, motion to release lots from covenant, lots 2 through 6 and lot 8 with the caveat that engineering must approve the final plan for which lot, Attorney Robbins?
For the inverts on the plan.
Inverts on the plan?
Yep.
The as-built plan?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, now back to PB 2318, 400 Littleton Road, application of Jack and Clara Farmstand LLC for site plan review, as well as, no, there isn't any stormwater on this. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for hearing us. I'm Sherry Gould. I'm an attorney in Littleton, Mass., and I'm representing Jack and Clara Farmstead, but let's call it Kimball Farm, because that's how we all know and love it. And I just want to introduce the team that's here tonight and tell you that I'm really excited because I think this is your first hearing for a special permit under the new commercial recreation overlay bylaw, which Jeff Morissette and myself, Planning Board and Fletcher's, we all had input. We're all really excited about this because it saves the permitting process and makes it.
Sorry, did we waive the reading?
Oh, we haven't. You're right. Sorry, thank you. All right, can I get a motion to waive the reading of the public notice?
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Sorry.
Thank you.
Repeat what I
Glad you
said.
said it.
This is the team that's presenting with us tonight. I have beside me Russ Tedford from the Hancock Associates, and beside him is Brian Judreau, who's probably one of our team planners, also from Hancock. Beside him is Ed Dumont. He's our general manager over at Kimball Farm. In the back, Jeff Valcourt, you all know him. He's the electrician for Kimball Farm. Beside him is the architect for the building, and that's Rob Hannon. And this is just walking in is Brad Kimball. He's the vice president of Kimball Farm. And beside him is Mike Provost, who will be the construction supervisor. What we have in front of you is a request to permit a permanent building where the arcade building is now, and to add on to it a permit to expand the old sawmill building and perhaps renovate it and make it into kind of a museum-type structure where people can look through a window as they walk from the arcade building area up to the mini golf and bumper boat area. And as you're walking up, you'd see the plexi windows and you'd see the operation of the old sawmill, which is something that the elder Stan Kimball always envisioned happening. And the dream is to carry out that vision for him. So I'm going to sit down because they all know so much more than I do, and I'll start with the engineers.
Yep. Good evening. For the record, Russell Tedford with Hancock Associates. So as mentioned, the parcel is currently zoned under the Commercial Highway District, Commercial Recreation Overlay District, as well as the Water Resource Protection Overlay District. As you can see here, the project area is approximately 140 feet off of Route 110. And the locus map up in the top right gives a good indication of where it lies on the lot currently. So as you can see here, we are within the 100-foot wetland buffer. We have a filing going through conservation right now for an RDA. We'll actually be back here on Wednesday to present that. So I'll just go over the existing conditions really quick. So the project area itself is around 19,000 square feet. And that's including, from the sawmill museum back towards the wetlands there. So the property or the project area elevations range from around elevation 250 to where the principal structures are, and then tilt back towards the wetlands at elevation 240. The only existing utility services are coming from the existing restroom building towards the top of the page. It's serviced with electric, water, and sewer are also on this plan here. And then stormwater management on site is currently they call them recharge trenches. They're placed at the drip lines of the existing arcade tent structure and around the existing restroom facility. And that was as part of a 2011 NOI filing that this work was permitted for. So, as mentioned, proposed is the 1 to 2 story arcade building, sawmill museum renovation, and function space on the 2nd floor. What we're doing here for outside of the building is we're providing egress through stairs as well as a ramp towards the top of the page that's ADA compliant, and as well utilizing to the left side of the page there's an existing boardwalk ramp that's going to be repurposed to make sure the entrance into the arcade building works. Water, sewer, and electric are all going to be fed through the existing restroom building towards the top there. I believe discussing, yeah, there's the existing water comes in from the right side. To the north is the sewer service, and I believe the electric is somewhere in that vicinity also. So for proposed stormwater management, some of the existing recharge trenches are going to be affected due to this construction. So what we're proposing here is to take roof runoff through downspouts into an underground infiltration system. What you see in those rectangles on the screen, those are storm tech chambers. It's a low profile plastic chamber system. It's got about a 3-foot total cross section. It's actually going to go under the building there, and then through a series of manifolds and pipes, it's going to discharge on the left side. There's a drain manhole where it pops out down to a catch basin. It's going to act as an overflow device. So the thought is we set the drain manhole elevation, the invert coming out of it for the pipe is about halfway through the cross section of the chamber. So we're allowing some recharge to come through and then attenuate the storm through the through that overflow catch basin. That's just going to bubble over into the wetlands. And for erosion control protection, we have a riprap apron there. It's going to be 6 to 9 inch rock to limit any sort of scour or erosion. And yeah, we in our narrative we did provide some stormwater calculations, give or take. You know, the change in impervious area from existing to proposed. So, as part of this project here, I believe we have 3,000. Excuse me, I have it written. 3,625 square feet of impervious area. And what we do in the calculations here, we just run through, you know, how we're mitigating based on the recharge requirements for the Mass Stormwater Standards. And what we've displayed is that we're in exceedance of the recharge calculation for that. And also as part of the stormwater, we provide a long-term operation maintenance plan. Just gives the owner a specific guidance in how to maintain the system. And procedures for upkeep and basic maintenance. And I think that wraps up my presentation here.
And ask Mr. Hannon to present the architectural plans on the building and the footings. Also, I think we withdrew the stormwater management permit because we didn't trigger it because of the size.
That's correct. So even though this project doesn't trigger the threshold for stormwater management permit, they still provided this information, and they are appearing to mitigate under best management practices. So we thank them for that.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Good evening, Rob Hannon, RWH Architect, out of Salem, New Hampshire. Thank you for your attention.
Hello?
All right. So I'll just get you oriented with the building. The top left, where there's a bunch of equipment showing, that's the Sawmill Museum. That's mostly an unoccupied space other than maintenance. There's a long, skinny crawl space storage right below that. Strictly storage, not occupied. Top center is the existing toilet room structure. Yep, right there. And then from that wall down is a new addition. And so we built new toilet rooms, built the electric room, and there's a new elevator. Off to the right is a new arcade. Yep. So that's a lean-to to the primary structure, which down below is the large rectangle. So it's a one-story arcade on this level, and then assembly space on the second floor. We currently have 4 means of egress, which is more than code requires. We have the 2 stairs that come out of porches on each end of the building, left and right. There's a stair, yep, right there inside the arcade. And then there's another stair along the existing toilet room, goes out there, correct? Yep. So the new arcade structure is planned to be a timber structure. We can look at the elevations. This is actually the back of the building. This is facing the wetlands. And there's our new front. So all the way to the left is the new entrance to the arcade. There's kind of kitschy add-ons, which is the old arcade sign, yep. And then right to that, there's a faux water tower. Kind of bring some of the playfulness, if you're familiar with Kimball. A lot of rustic features. Not everything is at 90 degrees. Kind of gives it that old charm. So we're doing our best to try and maintain that, even with the new structure. Moving to the right is the existing toilet room building. So we're going to maintain that. We're essentially building around it on 3 sides. And then over to the right, that's all the new Sawmill Museum element. So there's a cupola centered on the top of the arcade building. The roof is all standing seam metal roof. And then the entire building is going to be sided with wood siding and shingles. Just another end view. This is the end that faces the bumper boat area. A little tough to get the flavor, but it looks like it came from an old newspaper. So that helps. So that's the character of the building. These are all renderings. So very, very fitting for the property. A lot of different elevation changes, so I'm happy to take any questions.
All right. Staff, do you have anything before we go to the board?
No, sir.
All right, Bob, I'll start down there with you.
First question, you mentioned the assembly space. What is the planned use for that?
So it's open for
catering,
birthday
functions?
parties, yes, catering, and
function space
functions
for
to-
businesses to rent out.
So that's kind of the new capability of this site, it seems.
Yes, it is.
Everything else was a one-for-one replacement, but you would be seemingly adding indoor space as opposed to what you have now is outdoor.
correct.
Okay. And do you have an estimated capacity for how many persons?
I do. Give me 1 second here. Just in the upper assembly?
Yep.
Okay. 360 people.
Okay.
Maximum.
Is there plans for that to be 12 months a year or, 7 months during your operating season,
I'd
or
like to do it year-round.
year-round? Okay.
Yes.
And so I assume the parking calculations have been included for that space.
Correct, which
Yeah.
we have parking lots right there, especially, you know, I mean, it's gonna be, more for the winter months than summer, really.
Yeah, and and my last question has to do with the fact that I'm looking at this as the delta from what you presently have, and that's why I'm focused on just this.
Right.
And I guess I'd be worried now because you're probably gonna have to do plowing.
Oh, yes, yeah.
During the winter, so
We have to do that now.
I think we
because of the
probably
country
would
store.
like to look at, the plan for the roadway and look at what we call the snow storage areas, in the plans, because that's something you would now have to worry about
Well, we do.
operating 12 months a
We have
year.
to have it plowed because of the country store being open year-round,
Okay.
so.
But I mean, you're gonna be plowing more area back in this area here. You're gonna have more parking that has to be cleared of snow if you're gonna have a 360 person, capacity venue.
Correct, I mean, we should have that capability existing at this point here, so that should be doable.
Yeah.
So, just to tell on that, Bob, right, assume that you park in the main parking lot across the street, right,
Across
and
the
then the
street,
overflow
plus-
is in that field where the grass is.
Well, let's see, at this time here during the winter months.
And so that's my point, you wouldn't be plowing the grass field in the winter
No,
months, you'd have
no,
enough
no,
parking
no.
with the parking across the street.
We'd have the parking lot right there at the entrance of mini golf, mini golf and the arcade, because in the summer months, we have tents that everybody sits in.
Right.
In the winter months, they're gone.
And that becomes the parking.
Correct.
Yeah, I
In fact,
think,
we plow that on a daily basis, every storm there is anyways.
Oh, you
because of the
do?
Country store.
okay. All right. So,
Anything else, Bob?
nope, that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dylan?
No, nothing. We're gonna get an engineering review of this, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. I'll wait to see what engineering says.
No, I think it's gonna be a nice addition, I'll wait to hear engineering comments too.
Yeah, other than that, I agree, I think it looks great, and I don't have any, seems to me, again, there's a little bit the second story, but we're replacing a tent and adding a few little tiny buildings, gonna get it all together.
Yeah, that's one other thing I'd like to say is that the architecture is spectacular.
Yeah, yeah, it
Typical
really looks
Kimball's
nice.
looks very nice,
Thanks.
so.
Great,
And I did make a comment earlier today to town staff on the history of the property. There was I think, a mischaracterization by town staff, I can't assume it was Kimball's, that discussed the 1855 structure as being the ice cream stand, and I pointed out, no, it's the farmhouse. That might actually be like your second ice cream stand, I think, or it's been enhanced several times over.
Right, the original ice cream stand was attached to the house.
Right.
Absolutely. Then there was a fire, and then they had to, that's when they created they used the barn, and they brought that into the ice cream.
So-
At the ice cream stand and manufacturing area.
Yeah. But many of us remember going to the house when we were little
Yes.
kids.
Matter of fact, the picture of that is, when you walk into the country store, if you look up on the left-hand side, there's a photo the painting right there of the original.
Joe, did engineering give you any idea how long they need?
They didn't seem to think like they were going to need all that much time. They were very pleased with what they were seeing from a stormwater management perspective in their review thus far of the plans. So I don't know if you want to do something similar as you did with the last public hearing item. Have it subject
Start a
to.
draft decision, and
Yep.
then Attorney Gould, the 6th, does that work for you, November 6th?
To come back?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll move that we continue PB 2318.
Can we just,
Oh, yep.
And up to the-
just note
Oh.
if there are anyone from the
Yeah,
public?
anybody here from the public, everything? Great.
Yep, no,
Yeah. Good call,
One
Jeff. Sorry
last,
about that.
I guess I have one other question, just regarding the construction. What is the period of time when you plan to do this? Is it planned to be done out of season, basically, so you have area for all the construction trucks, or is this gonna
Correct.
affect your summer next year?
Well, I'm planning on trying to do it in phases, per se. The first phase would be the post beam structure, just the main building
Well, I'm sorry, do you want to get to the microphone, because it's being recorded, just if you could stand up so they can capture your voice on the microphone?
Okay.
Yeah, just in case anybody's listening to want to.
Yeah, so what we're trying to do is do in phases. The arcade first floor, the arcade building itself is gonna be the main part of the whole concept. Because I'm trying to get that built, so come next season, I'm able to run the bottom floor and only the bottom floor. So that way there, you know, we'll have summer activities there, and then that will help pave the way for the second phase. And that's what I'm trying to do. So that's why it will probably take 2 seasons to be able to, or 2 years to be able to complete.
Okay.
So that's my game plan.
Anybody have anything else?
All right, I'll move that we continue PB 2318 for 400 Littleton Road to the November 6th Planning Board meeting at 7 PM here in Meeting Room 201 at Town Hall.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I say aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you in November.
Okay, I think our last item is the MBTA Communities Update. Let the room clear for a second.
Sure. Joe, can you cover this for just a second?
Sure, absolutely. So as the board is aware, this has been going on for a little while with the MBTA Communities Update. Back around middle of summer, July timeframe, our MICMAC started officially meeting to try to assess the best way to have a draft bylaw in place for Springtown meeting. So they've been meeting approximately every 2 to 3 weeks. We had the outreach, first public outreach, if you will, at Strategic Planning Retreat. We got a lot of feedback. We have the survey results now here that we launched at that time as well. There were over 360 respondents of the survey that we launched at that time, giving a lot of good feedback. By and large, folks are concerned primarily about impact to schools, traffic, and making sure we're not impacting a lot of undeveloped areas. Folks are generally moderately hopeful of benefiting from from a potential bylaw. One of the things that we've found kind of interesting is over 50% are supportive of having more diverse housing types, including multifamily housing already. So that's a good thing going into Springtown meeting, where we just need a simple majority versus a 2/3, like for some other zoning bylaws. So we're getting a lot of good feedback thus far. Primarily the area that's getting the most support for a draft overlay district is Tech Park East. I think a lot of people are in favor of seeing, by and large, and as the committee has as well, seeing places that are either getting impacted in the post-COVID world of office users looking to work more remote or hybrid schedules, having a lot of empty parking areas, seeing those put to a higher and better use. Then you have kind of the next tier down is the Powers Robbins Road area, the Neshoba Valley Ski area, which we also had some concepts at Strategic Planning Retreat, and then perhaps some areas along the south side of Littleton Road. Area around 17 Carlisle Road and Balsam Circle, that probably got the least amount of support out there. I think folks didn't quite necessarily understand the limited impact that area would have, but thus far the committee has taken that out. And then I guess kind of in the mixed reviews category would be Westford Valley Marketplace. People were really concerned about Whole Foods going away if something were to happen there. And the north side of Littleton Road, I think there was concern about the depth of some of the parcels along that stretch. So if once you factor in setbacks, our building's going to be very close to the highway, and worrying about, say, like air quality for the residents there. So I think that's kind of some high-level takeaways. Sustainability, walkability, high up there in terms of things people are concerned about, as well as architectural design. And I think also you'll notice in the packet we got some compliance modeling from NEMCOG. I think the biggest takeaway there is don't necessarily worry about the numbers. From an area perspective, we should be well above and beyond our requirement. Our requirement, just to recap, is the potential for 924 units. When you add up the total area from the ones we have under consideration thus far, after even trimming it a little bit, is about 10 times that. The thing with the modeling, it doesn't necessarily factor in the needs for a septic or very steep slopes like the hill at Neshoba. It counts it almost as a completely, flat, open area for the modeling purposes. So take it with a grain.
Might be a problem.
Yeah, so take it with a grain of salt. But even if some of these areas get trimmed down a little bit, we should be fine from the compliance modeling, standard. We're trying to just kind of overall, I think, as a group for the MICMAC, if two of the members here don't mind me saying, is just trying to take the perspective of what's best for Westford and try to think about each of these areas and what are the pros, what are the cons, and letting town decide at some of our public outreach, does that make sense? And if so, we'll keep it in. If not, then we take it out. We have our upcoming public forum, later this week, with the hope of having a draft bylaw by the end of November to get to the state so they can conduct their review in time for town meeting.
Great. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, I think I would encourage folks to go Thursday because the consultants are going to be there, working with this consulting group that has done this work with other towns, and they can show sort of what these properties could look like. So if it's mixed use or apartment, just don't think of like a plain red brick building. It could be, a decent looking architectural building with maybe restaurant and some retail in there or something like that too. So just trying to look at what would be the best benefit for the town, knowing that we have to make allowance for, quite a few units as part of this. And I would tell folks too, take a look at the results from the survey. There's obviously stats there, but there's a lot of comments in there too.
I read some of the interesting comments. I took umbrage of the fact that I was told I was a bad planner because I sold off all the apple orchards.
So yeah, there's definitely some interesting comments in there. But yeah, I would say if you can make it Thursday, you'll get some good input or perspective from the consultants too.
Are they going to record the thing on Thursday?
WCAT is going to try to record some of it, so I think it'll be very beneficial for public outreach. So.
Yep.
We're not gonna have any parking issues, are we?
No comment. But park in the back near the auditorium.
Yeah.
That's where you can get in.
Yeah. I hope we have parking issues.
Yeah.
That'd be a good thing.
Too soon, Bob. Too
So
soon.
on the survey responses, am I the only person who was confused by how, well, we have some pessimistic folks in town. So under question 5, it seemed that the highest response to every potential impact was very concerned. And then on the next question, the highest response was not at all hopeful to get any of the benefits. And yet, when you get to the question related to which of the following approaches should we take to the MBTA communities law, rezone an area that may be larger than required. I just was like, wait a minute, I'm unclear. We're not sure we're getting the benefits. We're concerned about the negatives, but we should do more.
It's the same
I'm
folks
trying
that were
to
saying nay
make-
to the question of whether we should remove a question on the ballot or give money back.
Okay, so I wasn't the only person confused by that.
Yeah, and I will
Apparent
note, this was a
disconnection
mistake on my part. We did have the original survey results the consultant sent us. It had a filter still active on it.
Oh.
And it impacted the initial results they gave us, and that version ended up in your packet, so I do apologize.
Oh, okay.
So once they took that filter off, it looked
More balanced?
moderately more.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I was sitting
So
there
that
on
was-
Saturday like, I don't get this at all.
We noted the same thing. We're like, wow, nobody has any hope for this.
Like,
Future.
wow.
But we're like, oh, it's not so bad. It's not so
Okay,
bad.
okay, good. Yeah, well,
So
that's
it
good
is
to know. I'm glad I asked.
Tempered, I guess, is the
Okay,
best
good.
way to look
Well,
at it.
that's good. That's
It
better.
is.
But I guess also looking through this, it's the same, I just don't think the majority of people understand what affordable housing is. They seem to think, they're not thinking in terms of the restrictions and the requirements that it's only for certain individuals meeting certain income levels. They just look at it as, I can't afford to buy the house I want to buy, so I want it to be more affordable. And that's not at all what that is about, so we still have some education to do of for the general population about affordable housing.
I did have one other question on the compliance modeling, Joe.
Yes.
You know, I noticed that the setbacks were flagged as being too large, the open space was flagged as being too large. Are we considering a redirection then to, you know, I guess, increase and then reduce in respectively those to make the compliance model happier? Or just because the compliance model flags it as an outlier or something, we still have the flexibility to do what we want to try to maintain the character of the town?
I would answer yes to both.
Okay.
I think with the public forum we're going to have on Thursday, the consultants are really going to utilize the feedback that we get to kind of drive the design standards based on what people want it to look like, because they're going to have the different examples and let folks actually model out on some of these areas what, you know, how you want it to look. So the setbacks and the open space requirement could very well change based on the feedback we get. The model does flag it as unusually large. The numbers we started with to at least get this initial round, but I think if we kind of stuck around there from the compliance model perspective, we should be meeting our obligation. But
And I
you
guess
know,
if we
does
have
it make the
parcels
most
that are 10
sense?
times the size is what we need, I guess we might have some flexibility there, so that's great.
I took that was how to maximize those parcels, right?
Pretty much, yeah. But it doesn't factor in like the septic needs or anything like that. So it's not necessarily a build-out analysis per se, but.
I do think the exercise would be helpful on Thursday, because they are looking at couple of different areas, but one of the things that might come out of that is you might feel differently about setbacks right along Littleton Road as you do for other properties, you know, when you get far away from Littleton Road. So we didn't want to invest more time in the short term about setbacks until after we have benefit of input from the public forum Thursday.
Yeah, it's possible different areas might have different things people are looking for. So like Neshoba and Tech Park, I think the committee has felt could be one type of development versus the middle area of Littleton Road could be another.
And when is that public forum, Jeff?
Thursday evening,
Where?
6:30 p.m. Stony
Brook
Auditorium.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Great.
I guess my biggest concern is the traffic. I think the site issues in terms of water, septic, they get worked out during the process. But when I see 15 units per acre, I think of Northern Virginia, and having lived there almost 40 years ago, thinking about what that kind of development has done to that area, that scares me. Because that not only drives traffic during the day, it drives it on work days, it drives it on weekends. And it makes it incredibly impossible to get around easily. So I think that, for me, is something I want to focus on, making sure that however we do this, we don't significantly impact the quality of life for everybody in terms of access in this town. So.
Understood. It will be challenging to get probably near 15 units per acre. As we mentioned, the Bells, which are probably some of the more down, are about 10, but traffic is top of the charts in terms of looking for mitigation, so.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Anything else? Anybody? Nope. Motion to adjourn?
Meeting minutes.
Oh, meeting minutes, how, my goodness.
Yep.
You almost made it, Mike.
Dylan, saving me on that one. All right, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Of September 18th.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Bob?
Nope.
Joni?
No.
Dylan?
No.
Darren?
No.
All right, then we have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
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 I abstain.
You abstain. And it was just one set of minutes, correct?
Yes, sir.
So we're still one meeting behind then on minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.